What if the ugliest piece of jewelry in your house is the one you absolutely should not sell for $5? Think about the chunky plastic bracelet buried beneath a pile of tangled chains. The enormous rhinestone brooch your family calls costume junk. The black Victorian pin that feels too strange to wear, or the heavy silver cuff that looks so tarnished you have considered selling it by weight. Pieces like these disappear every day. They are donated, broken apart, aggressively polished or sold as scrap because somebody judged them in 3 seconds from the front. But experienced collectors do something very different. They turn the piece over, they study the clasp, they look for a maker's mark, a patent number, an old repair, a carved surface, or a tiny stamp that most owners never notice. That hidden information can completely change the conversation. Today, we are counting down 7 ugly, awkward, or deeply old-fashioned types of jewelry that can be worth serious money. Every category on this list has ordinary examples and exceptional examples. So this is not a promise that every old brooch is a jackpot. Value depends on the exact maker, design, material, date, condition, provenance, and current demand. An asking price online is not the same as a completed sale, and one extraordinary auction result does not establish the value of every similar-looking piece. Still, these are exactly the categories you should inspect before cleaning, repairing, donating, or accepting a quick cash offer. Remember 3 rules. Photograph every side and mark before acting, keep matching pieces together, and never use destructive tests or harsh chemicals on an unknown surface. The difference between junk and a collectible can be one construction detail. And number 1 is the category most likely to be sacrificed for scrap before anybody realizes who made it. Number 7, Bakelite bangles and carved jewelry. Let us begin with the material almost everyone calls plastic and almost no one examines carefully. Vintage Bakelite jewelry can look wonderfully wrong. The bangles are thick. The colors may have darkened into mustard, pumpkin, olive, or root beer brown. The surface can be scratched, and the shapes often feel more playful than elegant. To somebody cleaning out a relative's dresser, a stack of these bracelets may look like the cheapest thing in the room. But Bakelite was not ordinary modern plastic. It was the first fully synthetic plastic, developed in the early 20th century, and phenolic resin became an important material for consumer objects. The Metropolitan Museum of Art notes that Bakelite entered popular use in the 1920s for radios, handbags, jewelry, and other small objects. Jewelry makers embraced it because it could be polished, laminated, inlaid, and carved into bold forms that would have been difficult or expensive in traditional materials. That history alone does not make every bangle valuable. Simple, common color examples may remain affordable. The pieces that attract stronger collector attention tend to combine scarcity with visual impact. Deeply carved bangles, unusual colors, laminated layers, reverse carved designs, dramatic geometric forms, or figurals shaped like fruit, animals, flowers, and household objects. Color is more complicated than it appears. Oxidation can change the surface over decades. A bracelet that began much lighter may now look cream or butterscotch. A collector may use an area protected from light, such as the inside of a bracelet, to understand how the color aged. Rare, translucent colors, convincing marbling, unusual combinations, and original painted details can all matter. But color names in online listings are not scientific proof. Sellers routinely label ordinary vintage plastic as rare Bakelite because the word attracts clicks. Construction gives you better clues. Look at the carving under magnification. Hand-finished grooves may show subtle variations, while modern molded reproductions can display seams or overly uniform details. Feel the weight and density, but do not use weight alone. Catalin, celluloid, lucite, and other vintage plastics are also collectible and are frequently confused with Bakelite. You may have heard about warming the piece and checking for a chemical odor. Some collectors use that clue or a specialty product on a hidden, unfinished area, but neither method is infallible. Coatings and oxidation can mislead, while rubbing can harm decoration. If a piece has rare carving or original paint, ask a specialist. Condition affects price, but not in a perfectly straight line. A crack or chip hurts value. Replaced hardware can matter. Yet a damaged example of a genuinely rare design may still be more desirable than a flawless but common bangle. That is why a condition problem should be documented, not automatically treated as a reason to throw the piece away. Isolate any vintage bracelet, bead necklace, clip, or figural pin that appears to be early plastic. Photograph it in daylight and compare its carving, color, and hardware with documented auction examples or specialist books. The bracelet that resembles a piece from a toy box may be a real piece of design history. And the next category proves that even obvious imitation stones can become collectible when the signature is right. Number 6, crown Trifari brooches and jelly belly figules. Now pick up every old rhinestone brooch in the house and turn it over. Trifari made costume jewelry in enormous quantities, so the name alone does not equal a fortune. Many signed pieces sell for modest amounts. What collectors pursue are specific periods, designers, constructions, and rare designs, and some of the strongest clues are hiding behind the pin. One famous signature is the crown Trifari mark, with a small crown above the T. You may also find Trifari stamped with sterling, a design patent number, or a copyright symbol. These details help place a piece within the company's production history, but marks changed over time, and sometimes overlapped. A mark should be read as evidence, not as a complete appraisal. Trifari's reputation rose partly through the work of Alfred Philippe, who had experience designing fine jewelry before joining the company. His designs helped give costume pieces the structure and polish of more expensive jewels. During the wartime period, when many base metals were restricted, Trifari produced pieces in sterling silver. That is why an object that appears merely silver-colored may carry both a desirable maker's name and actual precious metal content. The so-called jelly belly figules are among the easiest pieces to underestimate. They use a clear, rounded plastic element to form the belly or body of a bird, fish, insect, poodle, penguin, or other creature. Rhinestones and metal complete the design. From the front, the clear body can look like a piece of toy plastic. From the back, a Trifari and sterling mark can tell a very different story. Christie's has catalogued vintage groups containing Trifari jelly belly figures in clear plastic and sterling silver, including fish, roosters, poodles, chicks, horses, and penguins. It has also documented Trifari crown brooches designed by Alfred Philippe with imitation-colored stones and patent information. That auction record matters because it establishes these designs as recognized collectibles, not merely nostalgic accessories, but identification must be precise. Other companies made clear-bellied figules. Reproductions exist. A generic animal pin should not be attributed to Trifari because it vaguely resembles an online photograph. Check the signature, metal mark, construction, measurements, stone layout, and documented design. A visible patent number can be especially useful because it may connect the object to an original design filing. Condition is crucial. Cloudiness, cracks, missing rhinestones, damaged plating, and replaced clasps can reduce value. Never put the clear element in an ultrasonic cleaner or glue, a loose component, before an expert sees it. An honest loose stone is preferable to a damaging modern repair. Photograph the reverse at several angles. Search the exact mark, subject, material, and patent number. Then verify that the comparable item actually sold. A dated auction result with photographs and condition notes means more than an ambitious asking price. The lesson is not that every Trifari pin is expensive. It is that two rhinestone brooches can look almost identical from the front, while the back places them in entirely different markets. And if Trifari is the piece people dismiss because it looks playful, number 5 is dismissed for the opposite reason. It is so bright, heavy, and theatrical that many families simply call it gaudy. Number 5, Eisenberg rhinestone clips and brooches. An early Eisenberg brooch does not whisper, it flashes. These pieces can be oversized, densely set with clear stones, and shaped like bows, flowers, birds, ribbons, or abstract sprays. On a modern minimalist outfit, they may look almost comically dramatic. In an estate box, they are often grouped with cheap holiday pins. Yet that visual excess is part of what collectors want. Eisenberg began in Chicago as a ready-to-wear clothing company. The Museum of Fine Arts, Houston, records that jewelry was introduced around 1930 to complement the clothing. The accessories became so popular that jewelry developed into the main attraction, and the clothing line eventually disappeared. That origin explains why many pieces have a sculptural, stage-ready presence. They were designed to complete an entire look, not to hide quietly at the collar. Early and mid-century Eisenberg pieces became known for strong construction, carefully set rhinestones, and reflective metal finishes. Some wartime examples were made in sterling silver. Marks can include Eisenberg Original, versions of the letter E, Eisenberg in block lettering, and Eisenberg Ice. Dating those marks is not always as simple as reading a chart because usage could overlap. Small pieces did not always have room for a full signature, and later jewelry can echo earlier designs. Still, an Eisenberg original mark is worth investigating. It is associated with the company's earlier period and can appear on bold clips and brooches that collectors especially seek. Look for a signature molded or stamped into the back, not scratched casually into the surface. Photograph it in raking light. A fake mark can be added, so the signature must agree with the design, construction, hardware, and age. Turn the piece sideways and study the settings. Better Eisenberg work often feels substantial. Stones may be held by prongs rather than sitting in puddles of modern glue. The back can show deliberate construction instead of a thin, unfinished casting. But do not turn those tendencies into absolute rules. Vintage repairs happen, and not every genuine item was built in exactly the same way. Missing or darkened stones matter because the design depends on consistent light. Replacements can reduce collector value when their color, cut, foil, or age does not match. Check in daylight and record chips, bent prongs, plating loss, repairs, and the clip mechanism. For a realistic valuation, compare like with like. A common floral brooch is not a valid comparable for a rare figural fur clip. A later Eisenberg ice pin is not automatically equivalent to an earlier sterling piece. A brooch by itself is not the same as a complete matching set. Subject, scale, mark, material, date, and condition all matter. What looks too gaudy to wear may be a small monument to the golden age of American costume jewelry. But number 4 goes even further. Its materials can be deliberately fake, its surface can look crowded, and its most valuable clue may be a tiny tag that somebody removed because it seemed ugly. Number 4. Miriam Haskell necklaces and hand-wired jewelry. This is the category that destroys the assumption that value must come from gold or natural gemstones. Miriam Haskell jewelry often uses simulated pearls, glass beads, seed pearls, rhinestones, filigree, and gold-tone metal. On a materials-only calculation, an uninformed owner may see very little value, but collectors are not buying a pile of imitation pearls. They are buying design, handwork, history, and a recognizable visual language. The Museum of Fine Arts, Houston, describes the Miriam Haskell Company as an American firm established in the 1920s. Haskell worked closely with principal designer Frank Hess, using materials that included Czech and Austrian glass, Japanese simulated pearls, wood, coral, and early plastics. The jewelry was handmade from quality materials and marketed as a luxury fashion accessory, even though it was not fine jewelry in the traditional sense. Turn a Haskell piece over, and the artistry becomes easier to understand. Beads and decorative elements may be wired by hand onto intricate filigree screens. The reverse can resemble metal lace. Layers of leaves, flowers, pearls, and glass create depth from the front, while dozens of careful wire connections hold the composition together behind it. Signatures require special care. The MFAH notes that Haskell jewelry made before 1947 was rarely signed. Later pieces may carry an oval Miriam Haskell cartouche or tag near the clasp, and other marks appear on hardware. This creates a difficult but important truth. An unsigned piece is not automatically early Haskell, but an authentic early Haskell can be unsigned. Attribution must therefore move beyond wishful thinking. Check whether the filigree, wiring, beads, findings, and clasp agree with documented work in museum collections, advertisements, catalogues, or respected reference books. It looks like Haskell is a starting point, not a certificate. The Metropolitan Museum of Art holds Miriam Haskell jewelry in its collection, but the market still separates ordinary later production from elaborate, documented early work. A simple signed necklace and a complex early parure belong in different classes. Do not polish the gold-tone surface to make it look new. Do not soak faux pearls. Do not cut old wire because it appears messy. And never throw away an oval tag, original box, sales receipt, or handwritten family note. Provenance does not magically make a common object rare, but it can help establish when and where a piece was acquired. At this point, you may notice a pattern. The most overlooked jewelry is often valuable for reasons that have nothing to do with raw material. Bakelite rewards rare design. Trifari rewards a specific maker and construction. Eisenberg rewards quality and period. Haskell rewards handwork. The top three add another layer: sculpture, social history, and authorship. Before we continue, pause if you are sorting a large inherited collection. Make 4 temporary groups: pieces with signatures, pieces with precious metal marks, pieces with unusual construction, and pieces with original boxes or paperwork. Do not mix loose stones or detach parts between bags. Write a number on each bag and give the same number to the photographs on your phone. That simple system can save hours of confusion and prevent a clasp from being paired with the wrong necklace. Now let us move to the piece people call an old lady brooch, a phrase that has caused more than a few miniature works of art to be sold as plastic. Number 3, hand-carved shell and hardstone cameos. Few pieces of jewelry are dismissed as quickly as a carved profile cameo. The image may be a woman's face with an elaborate hairstyle, a mythological figure, a soldier, an animal, or an entire scene. To many younger owners, every cameo looks like the same mass-produced souvenir. In reality, cameo describes a carving in relief. It does not tell you the material, age, artist, quality, or value. The Gemological Institute of America explains that cameos can be carved in shell or in stones, such as agate, onyx, sardonyx, carnelian, jasper, and quartz. Evaluation considers the medium, setting, condition, detail of carving, subject, and an artist's signature. The Metropolitan Museum of Art notes that hardstone cameos have generally carried more prestige than softer shell examples, although excellent shell carving can still reach a very high artistic level. So how do you begin? First, inspect the front, back, and edge. Shell often shows curvature and natural variation. Hardstone may reveal layers separating the raised figure from its background. Glass, resin, and plastic can imitate that contrast, so holding it toward a lamp is not proof. Second, study the carving under magnification. Hand carving may show undercutting around a nose, chin, hair, fingers, drapery, or leaves. The depth should make anatomical sense. A mass-produced molded face may appear flat, soft, repetitive, or perfectly smooth in ways that erase the carver's decisions. However, modern machinery can also produce intricate work, so visible detail alone does not establish age. Third, consider the subject. A standard female profile was made in enormous numbers. Multiple figures, mythological narratives, architectural scenes, historical portraits, men, animals, and unusual compositions can require more labor and may be scarcer. A signature can be important, but it must be authenticated. Scratches and natural lines are often mistaken for an artist's name. The setting is part of the evidence. Look for gold carat marks, silver marks, old pin mechanisms, hand-finished bezels, and period-consistent repairs. A beautiful carving in a later frame can still be valuable, but originality affects collector interest. Conversely, a gold frame does not automatically make a poorly carved cameo an important artwork. The carving and mounting must be evaluated both separately and together. Museums provide useful examples of just how specific cameo attribution can become. The Met holds an American helmet conch shell cameo of President Andrew Jackson, carved around 1835 by George W. Jameson and mounted in gold and enamel by William Rose. It also holds 19th-century Italian sets with multiple shell cameos depicting mythological and grand tour subjects. These are not generic lady profile pins. They are signed, dated, documented objects connected to artists, subjects, and cultural history. Condition can change the outcome. Search for hairline cracks through the background, chips along the edge, adhesive under the frame, worn noses or high points, missing fittings, and stress near the pin hinge. Do not push on the carving to see whether it moves. Shell can be thin, and an old crack may expand with very little pressure. Never use a hot needle to test a cameo. Never scratch the back, apply acid to the frame, or soak the piece in a cleaning solution. Those methods can damage organic material, dissolve adhesive, stain porous surfaces, or destroy evidence of age. A gemologist can use magnification and other non-destructive methods, while a jewelry historian can evaluate the mounting and style. Ask precise questions. What is the material? Was the image carved, molded, or machine-assisted? Is the setting original? What is its condition? What truly comparable examples have sold? The brooch everyone laughs at may be a miniature sculpture. Number 2 may look even less wearable because it can contain the hair, name, or memory of someone who died more than a century ago. Number 2, Victorian mourning jewelry and hairwork. This category makes people uncomfortable, and that discomfort causes important objects to be discarded. Mourning jewelry can include black jet brooches, rings with memorial inscriptions, lockets, miniature portraits, pearl borders, enamel woven hair, and watch chains made from hair. Not every black piece is mourning jewelry, and not every hairwork object commemorates a death. Hair could also symbolize friendship, love, or family connection. The inscription and context decide the meaning. The Metropolitan Museum of Art documents an American brooch from about 1850, made of gold, jet, pearls, crystal, and hair. Its reverse carries a memorial inscription naming Charles T. Evans, who died at sea in 1852 at age 39. That is exactly the kind of evidence that turns a strange black brooch into a specific historical record. During the 19th century, hair could be braided or plaited beneath glass, woven into bracelets and watch chains, or formed into flowers and three-dimensional designs. Gold fittings, original cases, painted miniatures, dates, names, and places can add layers of interest. A piece connected to a documented person or event may attract collectors of social history as well as jewelry. Black material must be identified cautiously. Whitby jet is fossilized wood associated with the English town of Whitby and became closely linked with mourning fashion. Black glass was often sold under terms such as French jet. Vulcanite, gutta percha, horn, bog oak, onyx, enamel and later plastics can all appear in dark jewelry. The popular rule that jet always feels warm and glass always feels cold is only a clue. Temperature, weight, static, reflected light, and surface texture may help, but none should be used alone. Hair work deserves equal caution. Genuine human hair can be extremely fine and carefully woven, but later reproductions and newly assembled sentimental pieces exist. Check whether the weave, frame, glass, inscription, clasp and metal all belong together. A fresh-looking braid inside an older empty brooch may indicate alteration. A date alone can also be copied. Originality matters, but an honest repair does not make an object worthless. A replaced pin stem or cracked glass should be recorded. The key is disclosure. Collectors become wary when modern glue, newly engraved dates, or replaced components are presented as untouched history. If the piece contains a name, keep it with family papers and research the inscription. A modest brooch with a documented story may be more compelling than a larger anonymous example. Preserve even a damaged original box. A jeweler's address can help date the object. Valuation in this category is especially variable. Material value, artistry, condition, rarity, and historical identity all interact. A simple black glass pin may sell inexpensively. A finely woven gold-mounted piece with a miniature portrait, full inscription, fitted case, and traceable subject can command substantially more. The presence of hair does not create value by itself. Most importantly, treat these objects respectfully. They were often made to keep a person physically close after separation or death. Even if you decide to sell, record every inscription and family connection first. Once a dealer separates the piece from its story, that information may never return. And now we reach number 1, the category where the scrap scale can erase the greatest amount of artistic value in a matter of seconds. Number 1, signed Mexican Taxco sterling silver. Heavy, dark, modernist silver is one of the easiest things to underestimate. A cuff may be too wide, a necklace may look severe, an oxidized brooch may appear almost black. Because the piece is obviously silver, an owner may think the safest approach is to weigh it, multiply by the current melt price, and accept whatever a scrap buyer offers. That calculation recognizes the metal and ignores the artist. Taxco, in the Mexican state of Guerrero, became one of the most important centers of 20th century silver design. William Spratling, an American architect who settled there, established a workshop in the early 1930s and helped connect local silversmithing with international markets. His work drew on pre-Columbian and Mexican visual traditions. Just as important, the workshop system trained craftspeople who would develop distinct careers and studios of their own. Names to investigate include William Spratling, Antonio Pineda, Hector Aguilar, Los Castillo, Margot de Taxco, Matilde Pula, and other documented designers and workshops. Their pieces are not interchangeable. Collectors recognize individual construction techniques, motifs, stone settings, workshop relationships, and periods of production. Christie's auction records demonstrate why authorship matters. In a 2019 sale, an Antonio Pineda amethyst and jade silver crown realized $6,250, a silver and inlaid onyx necklace realized $6,000, and a jade and cultured pearl eagle brooch realized $8,150. In another 2019 lot, a William Spratling obsidian and silver necklace and bracelet set realized $500. Those are historical results for specific objects in specific conditions, not promises about your bracelet. But they prove that recognized Taxco design can trade far above silver melt value. Turn the piece over and photograph every mark before cleaning. You may see Mexico, Taxco, sterling, 925, 950, a maker's name or initials, an eagle assay mark, or an alphanumeric registration mark. Do not assume one stamp tells the entire story. Mexican marking systems changed, workshops used multiple marks, and counterfeit signatures exist. Reference books often date a sprattling piece by a particular combination of marks rather than by the name alone. The design itself must support the signature. Examine the weight, hinge, clasp, soldering, stone setting, and finish. Compare the motif with authenticated works. A crude tourist bracelet stamped with a famous name should raise questions. So should a mark whose letter, shapes, spacing, or placement disagree with documented examples. Stones and inlays can be important. Designers used amethyst, obsidian, onyx, turquoise, jade, coral, abalone, quartz, and other materials. Look for cracked cabochons, replaced inlays, missing sections, and old adhesive. Do not soak a mixed material piece. What is safe for sterling may be unsafe for porous stone, shell, wood, or old glue. Patina is another trap. Tarnish is not proof of age, and a polished surface is not proof of newness. Still, aggressive machine polishing can soften tool marks, erase deliberate oxidation, round crisp edges, and reduce the contrast a designer intended. Leave the surface alone until the piece has been identified. Tarnish can be addressed later. Lost texture cannot be put back easily. If you plan to sell, seek more than one opinion when the maker appears important. A general gold and silver buyer may be excellent at calculating metal content and still know little about Mexican modernist jewelry. A specialist auction house or dealer can evaluate the designer market. Ask what comparable sales support the estimate, what fees apply, and whether restoration would help or hurt. The central lesson is simple. Never let a signed artistic object become scrap before you understand the signature. So, which ugly piece should you check first? The plastic-looking bangle may be carved Bakelite. The clear-bellied animal could be a sterling Trifari figural. The blinding rhinestone clip may carry an early Eisenberg mark. The fake pearls may belong to a hand-wired Miriam Haskell design. The old lady brooch could be a carved shell or hardstone cameo. The unsettling black pin may preserve a named person's history, and the tarnished silver cuff may carry the mark of a major Taxco designer. None of that means you should believe the first exciting price you see online. Use sold results, not optimistic asking prices. Match the maker, material, subject, size, period, and condition. Remember that an estimate is not a sale price, and famous provenance can push one object far beyond an ordinary example. Then protect the evidence. Photograph before cleaning. Keep boxes and paperwork. Store each piece separately so stones and metal do not scratch one another. Save loose components in a labeled bag. If the object appears unusual, consult a qualified appraiser, gemologist, conservator, or specialist in that exact category. The word ugly only describes somebody's taste. It tells you nothing about age, craftsmanship, rarity, history, or market value. If one category on this list surprised you, subscribe and tell us in the comments which one might be hiding in your home. Bakelite, Trifari, Eisenberg, Miriam Haskell, a hand-carved cameo, Victorian mourning jewelry, or signed Taxco silver. And before you donate it, repair it, polish it, or sell it by weight, do the one thing every careful collector does. Turn it over and check.